Hello, my name is Tom Reichert. I'm very humbled and honored to be the Dean of the College of Information and Communications here at the University of South Carolina. From what I understand, this is the best and most well-prepared class in the 50 years of the iSchool. We're very proud of you, and we know you're going to go on and do great things. So again, congratulations.
We just have, you're done, you're excited, you're ready to move on, but we just have time for one little last lecture. I will not be the first nor the last person to point out that you are graduating at a unique point in history, a time when people are talking about a reopening, a sometimes halting, undoubtedly uneven, and often unequitable reopening of society. It is easy to look ahead to this reopening, to the time after you graduate, to the time of vaccines. This is good. And you certainly earned it. But I ask you to reflect on the year that has just passed. I ask you to do this because it will be a time that will drive this nation in the coming decade. And as librarians, as information professionals, you form the vital memory of our nation. This past year has been one of loss. For too many, the loss of a loved one, friend, or colleague. But for all, a loss of certainty. In this past year, a pandemic made us question the safety of our neighbors, the choices of our community, and the tenuous nature of healthcare. In this past month and the months before, an insurrection at the Capitol made us question the strength of our democracy, of our own ideals, and of the intentions of our leaders. The murder of Black men at the hands of police have made us question our own role in eliminating racism, in our privilege, and in the foundation of our civic institutions. It is understandable to not want to dwell on loss and uncertainty and to look at the promise of tomorrow. But if there's one thing that the past year has shown us, it is that the promise of tomorrow is not given to us or waiting for us. It is us. You, my friends, are that promise. In your classes, in your interaction with faculty, in your internships, and your late night study sessions, you were forged into a force to make the world a better place. You, the promise, must now confront and comfort those who have lost friends, family, and colleagues. One of the last accomplishments of a great librarian and my great friend, Nicolette Solusky, was to create programs in public libraries to support the bereaved. She developed this program after a widow came to her seeking resources on coping with the death of a spouse. What many who now use the resources she developed did not know was that Nicolette was building these resources while she was dying of brain cancer. When she sought to make the world a better place, it was not to ignore her pain, but to use that pain and that struggle to help others. You, the promise, must now bring together communities polarized into ideological camps that are seeking to have their own realities. Communities increasingly populated by narratives of distrust of government. When the Kansas state government entered a rapid reduction in government services, accompanied by increasingly toxic rhetoric that made out the public sector as inept or unnecessary, it was Gina Millsap, executive director of the Topeka Public Library, that demonstrated the power of local government. She had the public library team with businesses and nonprofits to put together a literacy effort for her city. She worked across the ideological spectrum to find common ground and train her librarians to be literacy coaches. When too many people needed the services for her librarians, she trained volunteers. When people in need couldn't be met in the library, she sent the volunteers into the streets of the city to work in the homes of the community. She didn't do this because she was a Republican or a Democrat. She did this because she was a librarian and a neighbor. You, the promise, must recognize that racism is not only the language we use, but in the laws that we pass and the very foundations of the institutions we build and manage. Augusta Baker was a children's librarian at the New York Public Library. She saw the power of literature to inspire children and the power of fiction to unlock the potential of all. And she saw how racism throughout society limited Black characters and representation in published works. She worked tirelessly throughout her career to diversify the genre of children's literature and to make books for children and young adults more reflective of the people who read them. It was her inspiration that led to the creation of the Augusta Baker Chair here in the school and inspires the amazing conversations, scholarship, and student support of the Baker Chair today. There is no doubt that this past year has been trying and extraordinary, but the grief, ideological division, and racism are ongoing pandemics that have been around long before COVID. The cure for these will not be a vaccine. It will be you. It must be you. You in your individual work. You as a class leading to new practice and redoubling of efforts. You as a discipline that for millennia have worked to improve the world through knowledge and compassion. It was the promise of the past that unchained books, that built public libraries for all. It was the past promise that democratized access to information, that made literacy a basic human right, and that sought to connect the world. This is your foundation. This is your inheritance. The way that you honor that inheritance is not to just look ahead, but to critically examine what has come before, acknowledge its imperfections, and then build it better. Today, you are ready to fulfill your promise, and we'll be here to help. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you so much for those remarks. That was wonderful, Dr. Lankus. So now I am actually going to share a recorded video of our student speaker for this year, Karen Burton. So I will share that video with you all right now.
Hi, my name is Karen Burton, and I have the privilege of giving this year's graduation speech. When I tell people I am getting my master's in library and information science, I get a variety of reactions. Some blank and confused stares, and many questions about why you need a degree to just shelve books. And I don't exactly fit the stereotype of an old lady wearing a sweater, sitting behind a desk, or wandering around the library, just looking for people to go, shh. There's a special class for that in library school, right? I took it, you didn't too? So anyway, all we do at work is sit around all day reading books and putting them back on the shelf, right? We all know librarians are more than that. But then we have to ask, what more should we be? Something I love about librarianship is that we have to constantly learn more about something. And professional development is not only encouraged, but required. Even if all of this learning and improving is not always easy, we all have to do it so we can be more in whatever path our career takes. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that we are all more now than we were when we started on our journey that ends with receiving our MLIS degree today. As we leave the University of South Carolina, there are so many different areas of libraries we will explore. Many of us will be school librarians. The rest of us will work in public libraries, academic libraries, special collections, archives, and some of us may not work in a library at all, but in other institutions where our skills are needed and valued. As we leave academia and enter the real world of libraries, all of these environments require us to learn more and to be more. We will be more welcoming of advances in technology. We will be more aware of new issues that arise, including many we never even thought of, as this past year has illustrated. We will advocate more for intellectual freedom and against censorship. We will work towards becoming a more welcoming, diverse, and inclusive environment, and expand equitable access for all. We certainly do not want to hoard our books and knowledge. We want to freely give them away. So why do we have to be more? What is the point of all this? People need libraries of all kinds, and I think this pandemic has showed us that people don't just need libraries for books. They need us for access to accurate health information. They need us for job searching. They need us to ship laptops to college students who left for spring break and couldn't get back in their dorm rooms to get their own laptops and textbooks. They need us for parking lot Wi-Fi access so their child can do their homework. And they need us for diapers and food distribution. They need us as a COVID testing site and now vaccine administration sites. They need us for entertainment, DVDs, magazines, and of course books. And if you haven't seen the Curbside Larry video, you're missing a very entertaining couple of minutes. Librarians need to be more because people need libraries to be more. We have the privilege of being that more that people need. Now let's go see what more we can do together.
All right, and now I will hand it over to Dr. Michael Weisenburg, our guest speaker for this year.
Hello, thanks. Excuse me. Hello, thank you, and good morning. First off, I want to congratulate you all and wish each of you well on your journey ahead. This is a momentous occasion, and you should each take a moment to feel proud of your accomplishment. I must admit that in addition to being humbled, I was a little nervous about agreeing to speak today, so I went back and watched some videos of past commencements for inspiration. And there's something that Dr. Lanke said back in 2019. He mentioned that he was about to write a formulaic doom and gloom lecture, but that he stopped himself from doing so because he realized that you are all well aware of the challenges. And what you needed instead was hope and optimism. I want to build on that idea because not only are you all aware of the challenges you face, but I know that you are well prepared to face them, perhaps more so than you realize or think. I want to convince you of this by taking a few minutes to look back at the field and talk briefly about 3 events in the history of American libraries that speak directly to the past, to this past year. I think that they might help guide you moving forward. These 3 things are the 1918 flu pandemic, the social unrest that gripped Ferguson, Missouri in 2014, and the career of Augusta Baker. I realize that these first 2 topics sound intense and that I'm in danger of slipping into doom and gloom with them, but I do think that there is hope and inspiration to be found in both. First, the 1918 pandemic, which while not identical, does have many stark comparisons to what we have all just experienced. And the comparisons hold for libraries too. In 1918, libraries pivoted to a focus on public health concerns, and Julia Skinner has recently shown that libraries were central to disseminating public health information. They worked to allay unnecessary fears and strove to keep their communities knowledgeable about emergent best practices. They modeled appropriate behavior by requiring masks. They limited programming and reduced the number of people who could be in buildings. Some even closed their doors for brief stints. However, many of them worked hard to get books and materials to readers. In fact, demand for library materials increased in 1918 and 1919 because people were stuck at home and had more time to read. This should all sound very familiar, but it's not just the epidemiological similarities I want to point out. Additionally, the 1918 pandemic changed the nature of library services. There was a move away from a focus on the classics and a more traditional prescriptive manner of community engagement, and a move toward a resources and services approach that was guided by the needs of the communities and individual users that each library served. In other words, the crisis of the early 20th century encouraged librarians to reimagine what libraries could be based on how they could best help the people who needed them. While this past year has been difficult, it also presents an opportunity for us to meet new challenges and to excel in our field by better serving our communities. The second topic speaks to the growing tension in our nation regarding social justice and equality. While the pandemic might be situated as a once-in-a-century type of event, the growing Black Lives Matter movement as a response to systemic injustice is an all too real and all too persistent part of our culture. And yet, we can look to the history of libraries in America for guidance. I won't recount all of the details, but on November 25th, 2014, the Ferguson Library Director, Scott Bonner, posted a sign that read, quote, "During difficult times, the library is a quiet oasis where we can catch our breath, learn, and think about what to do next." During the social unrest of that late autumn, the library became a safe space for the community to not only read, but to educate kids who had nowhere else to go due to unexpected school closures, to organize local leaders, or simply for people to get a drink of water. Overnight, and in the midst of chaos, the library became a symbol of what was best about Ferguson. It became a beacon of hope. The third topic I want to talk about is not an event, but a career, specifically the career of Augusta Baker. And I want to talk about Mrs. Baker because while it's helpful to look at how the field of librarianship might change in response to a global emergency, or how an individual librarian might respond to a specific crisis, it's also instructive to consider how a person builds a life out of librarianship. I'm sure that many of you know that Augusta Baker was an important 20th century librarian who was instrumental in encouraging children's literature to be more inclusive. She had two careers, one at the New York Public Library and one here at the University of South Carolina, where she was the first storyteller in residence. In both of these positions, she not only helped authors, illustrators, and publishers to create more accurate and empathetic artwork and stories, she also helped a lot of students learn to be better citizens. This was something that was foundational to her ideal of librarianship, and it runs throughout her career. In 1943, she published an article titled Reading for Democracy, in which she states that, quote, in order to give children more democratic attitudes towards all the racial groups that make America the great nation it is, we must use literature that will strengthen the growth of democracy. And later in 1964, she wrote in an article titled Pioneer in the War on Poverty that, quote, we do not see these as new opportunities for service. They are rather extensions of a program that is over half a century old. You are all now taking up that work, which is now over a century old. And I have no doubt that you will build upon these democratic, socially focused, and service-driven ideals that form the foundation of our core values. These examples speak to our present moment, not merely because they illustrate crises that are similar to the ones we have just faced, but because they offer models for how to find solutions to problems, and because they illustrate how we might better labor towards a better world. I focused on these three examples because I want you to know that you are not alone in this endeavor, but are part of a continuity. And as you go on to excel in your careers, you will undoubtedly face crises, some minor, some major. And in these moments, you need to keep faith that you will persevere. You all now have the training and skills to become excellent librarians, and I'm confident that each of you will find a way to inspire your community of users. And so I say to you again, congratulations.
And thank you so much to all of our speakers for being willing to participate in the ceremony today. I know being asked to do something like this can be nerve-wracking enough on its own, but especially doing it in a virtual environment adds another element of having to deal with technology as well. So now we are going to get into the presentation of our graduates. I do want to quickly introduce someone, Amy Smedberg. She just joined us as our new general track advisor for our MLIS students. And so she will be helping me read out the names of our graduates for the spring and summer. I am also going to be sharing some music to try and add a little bit of occasion to the reading out of the names. So I will cue that up right now and we will get right into it. Shayna Brooks Smith Alexander.
Bailey Campbell Avent.
David Robinson Ballinger.
Sherry Diane Beeman.
Ethan Mitchell Blouch.
Andrea Ann Brown.
Karen Burton.
Rachel Marie Kaufman.
Michelle Renee Costello.
Jordan Skylar Cruz.
Gabrielle Ann Darling.
Ashley Hobbs Dawkins.
Jessica Easterbrooks.
Crystal Altisha Elliott.
Anna DeBose Gauze.
Jennifer S. Gibson.
Sarah Christine Holmes.
Casey L. Howard.
Hannah Cassidy Jackson.
Tamika LaShawn Jackson.
Schaefer Ripley James.
Aubrey K. Jenkins.
Heather Ash Johnson.
Grace Jones.
Greer Kelly.
Aria Victoria King.
Leslie Wyndham Lloyd.
Kira Jean Lyle.
Linda Mackey.
Casey Jean McCool.
Kyle P. McMillian.
Sarah A. Milner.
Amy Lauren Marsh Meisenheimer.
Michelle Marie Montanaro.
Ashley Polk Murray.
James Robert Noel.
Jana Palliser.
Hannah Nicole Patton.
Frankie LaShare Pinkney.
Sonia J. Richardson.
Jacqueline Leanne Sears.
Rochelle Sexton.
Christine Shaw Rittmeyer.
Anna Marie Sheely.
Victoria Atkins Slessman.
Ron Stafford.
Laura Ann Swanson.
Britta Jane Swenson.
Stacy Marie Templin.
Desiree Monet Thomas.
And Ashley Marie Moore Walker. Congratulations to all of our spring and summer 2021 graduates.